The Heart of It.
Roy West kicking in towards the centre.
A distinctly Tasmanian conversation.
I can feel what it will be like when Tassie plays his first game, and I just...
Lynch gathers, he's got loose men everywhere, but he decides to have a pump shot, and it's an absolute ripper! 200 goals for Peter Hudson. What a fantastic effort.
How did he do that? Bear kick finishes off in style.
Up towards half forward, Stewart flying over the top. Oh, pulled in a beautiful mark.
Well done from Scott. After all, Sherwood's got the first goal. Has it done?
Nichols has had the big ruck with it. Oh! Close
Hello and welcome to The Heart of It, a distinctly Tasmanian conversation. There have been so many examples, arguments presented as to why Tasmania deserved an AFL licence. Thankfully, the decades-long quest was finally realised, with May the 2nd, 2023, a highly significant day in the state's proud history. My guest today provides perhaps the perfect case of why the new club is so crucial for young Tasmanians. Many believe he should have played more than 200 games at the highest level. Ian Callinan was a star junior, a natural two-sided footballer with unrivalled skill and uncanny goal sense. But despite racking up accolade after accolade, Callinan's dream of being drafted to the AFL was an agonising, almost cruel story of hopes continually being built up, only to be crushed, time and time again. Critically, a move away from Tasmania to play with the powerful South Australian side Central District led to a belated chance to achieve his ultimate ambition. Now, back home living in Tasmania, Callinan has overcome a fresh challenge, having suffered a stroke at the age of 37. This is the story of the Rokeby boy, affectionately known as Wingnut.
Yeah, fond memories, mate. Obviously, growing up at Rokeby, I got two brothers and a sister, so it was great times, mate. I just remember I always had a footy in my hand. Dad always used to, tell me, if you want to be any good, always have a ball in your hand. So, Dad's obviously been in the greyhound game. I used to go to the, remember going to the dog trials, taking a footy with me, practicing kicking the ball through, the fence or anything, or kicking it up a tree, trying to crumb it off it. So, I always had a footy in my hand, and it's probably helped me in the long run with my skill level and that sort of thing. But really, really fond memories of growing up at Rokeby.
Was it your old man who stressed to you that you needed to be two-sided? You were a beautiful left and right footer. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. I remember going down and having a kick with Dad down at Rokeby High School, and there'd be times where I'd only be able to kick left foot. So, probably the thing that's missing in today's game, the kids are probably not as good as on the opposite side. So, I know most people say now that try and use your weapon and get on your right side, but there could be a moment in a grand final where you need to kick that goal on your left foot. So that's one thing Dad always instilled in me, and thankfully we did.
Was he a player or just a footy lover, or?
He played, but he only played country footy. He'll tell you he could play, but as they all do, the older fellas. But he took time in me. He's more probably a cricketer than anything. But he took his time. My two brothers as well. Probably kicking the ball out in the front yard, playing markings up, really helped me and held me in good stead. Obviously, I wasn't the tallest bloke going around, but they taught me how to use my body because I was a lot smaller than everyone else.
Did you come across Tim Payne and Matty Wade in those early days around that Rokeby area?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I went to school with Timmy, and obviously Wade, he played up in Clarence, but sort of grew up, with those sort of guys, and for them guys to kick on and actually play cricket. But they were two really handy footballers. Probably could have played AFL at some stage, and if we had our own AFL side, they probably they might have chose football.
Yeah, it's a good point. How old were you when you first played senior footy at Clarence?
I was 16, so I was obviously playing with the Mariners back in those days. So I was playing with those, and then I only played 3 games because we played finals in 2000, and then I played a game earlier on in the year against North Launceston, and then went back and played Mariners, and then we got knocked out in the finals, and then I played the first semi-final against North Lonnie again up at York Park. Back in those days, under lights. It's when they only just got the lights, and then I actually got knocked out in that game. So I was a bit worried I wasn't going to play, but to Fags' credit, called me in. We had the week off, called me in and said, "Look, just make sure you get yourself right. You're going to play." So I was lucky enough to play in the grand final after 3 games, and it was brilliant.
Amazing. How'd you get knocked out?
Big Adam Ahern. I'm not sure if you remember Big Adam Ahern. He's about 6'5". ball got kicked to me, yeah, he just kicked me flush. So, yeah, it's probably the only time I've ever been knocked out. But yeah, it was it was pretty stressful because I didn't think I was going to play the following week.
Yeah, so you play in the last statewide league grand final under that former model of the statewide league in 2000. What are your memories of that Clarence team and that day?
Oh, it was unbelievable, mate. Obviously, it was a little bit different for me because I hadn't been around. I'd played 2 under-18 premierships at Clarence, so I knew a lot of those guys, young guys, but hadn't had a lot to do with the senior guys. I knew idolising Gavin Cooney and Anthony Cole, Petey Ritchie, those sort of guys. We had Trent Nichols come back, Nick Davey. Obviously the younger guys like Caddy Gapin, Budgie, really good mates of mine. I think Matty Jamison played in that. Thurles was unlucky, ended up missing out, but sort of had a rapport with those guys, so it sort of made me, fit in straight away. So it was just great memories, mate. I probably didn't really appreciate it at the time when you're that young, and obviously I was hoping to be drafted, so you quickly move on, win the flag, quickly move on, worrying about the draft camp and that sort of things, and then it sort of didn't work out. But I really appreciate it now. I just really look back and think, geez, I wish I really appreciated it then. But when you're only a 16, 17-year-old kid, you probably think you're going to win thousands of them. But it was great memories, and I've still got some great mates at Clarence, and it's good to go back there and have a few beers and catch up with those guys.
So you're an All-Australian in your under-18 year with the Mariners. You win the Hunter Harrison Medal as the best player in Division 2 at the National Carnival. What do you remember about your thought process around the time? You talked about how you wanted to get drafted. Did you feel like you'd given a really good case for yourself to be picked up, and what was the interest level like at the time? Yeah,
absolutely, mate. I look back now, and I probably couldn't have done it any more. I remember at the time, and because the Mariners back in those days, it was pretty big. There was an article in the paper every week, and sometimes when you're that young, you start believing what you read. There's probably an article in the paper every week about, Callinan's sure to be drafted this week, so you start probably believing it. And when that doesn't happen, it was pretty disappointing. But my mindset was, and that one thing Dad always said to me, like, just keep playing the best footy you possibly can, and you just never know. So that's the mantra I tried to abide by. So you get All Australian, you win the hunt. It doesn't really mean much until your name gets read out on the day. So for me, it was just about disappointment on draft day, not getting picked up, and then obviously I got lucky and trained at Collingwood, and that didn't work out either. So it was just a matter of probably being in the right place at the right time. We got the VFL team and ended up staying home and playing in that.
Yeah, so the VFL team comes in really quickly. The way Matty Armstrong pulls it together after the fall away of the statewide league, and then the Devils come in, and he's got to pull together this side, and you're part of it. What are your memories of the early stages of the Tassie Devils? Yeah,
it was really strange, to be honest, because I don't know if you'd remember Gary Davidson. He was working at Geelong at the time, and I remember getting a phone call from him about, remember the old SUP elementary list players? He rang me about maybe going and being one of those at Geelong, and he said to me, look, come and train with the group, work with Tim McGrath, who played heaps of footy with Geelong, and he was a builder at the time, come and work with him and do all the training and play on our VFL side. So I was really weighing up that, and then the groundswell started happening with our VFL side, and once that was coming in, there was no way in the world. I was obviously could stay at home and play VFL footy, and I remember meeting up at the crossroads up at North Hobart there when our first training run, and there was blokes that we played against, like Benny Atkin, who I grew up idolising. He was an unbelievable player at Glenorchy, even though Clarence hated Glenorchy. Like, he was I remember going to watch him against Clarence, and he just dominate, stand out with the bald head, and he was, we got to train with him and Benny Careless and those sort of guys. So it was really strange, and I remember the early days we went on a camp, and it was a bit of angst because the Clarence Glenorchy rivalry. But once we had a few beers and it sort of let it all out, it was just, mate, it was unbelievable. And they're some of my greatest memories of my football career, especially early. And I was lucky enough to play 100 games and to play with guys that you idolised. And we obviously didn't go on and win the ultimate, but we played some unbelievable finals. And I remember playing at Bellerive Oval. You would have been there when we had 10, 12,000 people there. And to this day, there's some of the greatest memories. And that's what I think an AFL side can do for our state is, if we can get 10,000, 12,000 people to a VFL game, well, who knows what we can do with an AFL side.
Yeah, it's a great point, isn't it? Just on the Devils, the early stages of the Devils in the VFL, it's pretty tough, isn't it? But then you have that breakthrough win against Carlton at Princes Park, or whatever it was called, whoever sponsor had hold of it at that time. You played in that game, did you? Do you have memories of that?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I remember playing, and I remember because I played with Scotty Allen. Remember Scotty Allen? He was unbelievable. He hadn't had the greatest 3 weeks, and I remember Dogger, putting it on him during the week, and I just remember him coming out and kicking 6 goals. And Carlton had a pretty stacked side back in those days, even though they weren't dominating at their AFL. Their VFL side was really strong, and mate, I remember playing, and it was just the best feeling of all time because we'd struggled early days. I still remember our first game. We played Sandringham, and they had the Melbourne alignment. And I remember the scores were level at half time, and we walking into the room singing, "How good are we? We've hardly trained. We're not even really gelling together yet. Like, we're going to be unbelievable." And we end up getting beat by 100 points. So I quickly realised how far away we were. But mate, Dogger was an unbelievable coach that could just gel the group, and like, he was pretty hard on a fair few of us. He broke a few guys along the way, but he's one of my really good mates, and he basically made my career because he taught me how to train. I probably had the talent, but just didn't know how to train at a level where you could play the best footy you possibly could. So, and he instilled that in a lot of guys that come through the system.
Yeah, you talk about those crowds for those finals, the level of support for the team. And the growth of the team as a standalone team at that point. There was the flirtation with North Melbourne for a couple of years, and that ultimately didn't work. But as a purely Tasmanian team, you achieved some great things. I think the first final win was against Geelong in an elimination final, and Trent Bartlett helped turn the game. And then you made it all the way to a prelim one year against Sandringham from memory, wasn't it? I mean, staggering to think what a Tassie side unaligned up against these teams that had AFL alignments were able to do.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's a good point because we used to laugh about it, but our mantra was like we used to love playing against the AFL blokes every week because in the end, you want to play against the best players, and we used to have a little bit of an in-house joke because you play and you do all right, and then it's funny because that bloke would be playing AFL the next week, and you think to yourself, how's this bloke playing AFL? Because we actually did all right him the week before, but. So our mantra was like, let's just serve it up to them. We didn't have the most gifted side. We probably didn't have the talent the other side. But what we did have was we had heart, and we had blokes that were playing for each other. So obviously we didn't win a premiership, but we played some bloody unbelievable finals, and some of that is off the back of our supporters. Like our support was unbelievable. You couldn't walk down the street without someone bailing you up and saying how good a program it was, and loved going to watch you guys. And it was basically like having an AFL side in the VFL, to be honest. It was just like rock star sort of stuff, especially early days. And yeah, that were just great memories.
Your mum was a big fan, wasn't she? She went to every game. She's pretty vocal.
Yeah, you would have heard mum in the crowd. She hasn't been to many games in the back half of my career, but yeah, she's never missed a game. She'd just sit there and barrack loud, and if I didn't get the ball, she'd certainly let them know.
Great to have that level of family support, isn't it, when you think about your dad's involvement and your mum's involvement through your footy career?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And that's the bit you sort of lose when I went to South Australia. Obviously had my wife Lauren, and that was basically it. Jack was only 18 months old at that time, so you sort of move away, which is a big change. But it was really, really great to obviously play them 100 games down here, and have your family, your 2 brothers, and my sister there, and even just your mates that you work with or you went to school with. It just it's great to have those guys there and support you.
You were the first player to play 100 games for Tassie in the VFL, which I'm sure is a great honour for you. You won the Liston Trophy in 2005 as the best player in the VFL. And again, that dream sort of opens up again a little bit that you might get drafted off the back of that. What do you remember about that period and your hopes to play AFL footy?
Yeah, I still had dreams. I think I was about 23 or 24, so I was still at the age, and I was just starting to take older guys at that stage. So, obviously I was lucky enough. I'd trained at Essendon the year before, so I was obviously super fit. And I remember we actually started the season pretty ordinary. We were struggling, especially early days. And I remember Dogger calling us in and said, "Look, what we're going to do is to try and get a bit of a mental edge and try and turn our season around." It was just a small thing about doing 10, 12 200s on a Monday night, and we started doing that. And I think we ended up winning about 10 or 12 in a row. And it sort of helped my footy as well. Obviously you can play better footy when your team's playing better. So we sort of turned it around as a team, and the back half of the year was some of the best footy that we played in the VFL. So I still remember the Liston night. We'd been knocked out on the Saturday against Sandringham in the prelim, and so we'd had a fairly few beers 2 days leading in. And I remember the Liston being at Moonee Valley Racecourse. So we went there and we went down to the pub on the Monday, and then Dogger had to come down and grab us. Said, "Look, you better come back," and we obviously got to get ready to go. And Bucket was with us. Benny Acken was there. There was Beamer. I think Kenny Hall might have been there. And Bucket had forgot his shoes, so we had to ring Jordan During, who had played with us the year before, to bring him a pair of shoes to the racetrack. And we obviously go there, and it got to about halfway through the night, and I remember Dogger coming up and whispering to me. He said, "Mate, you need to slow down drinking." He said, "Because you might be a chance in the back half." And I just and then I started getting a couple of votes, and my heart just started it was like I instantly got sober straight away. And yeah, I remember I needed 3 votes in the last game, and they'd left that game. We played Williamstown, and I knew I'd played okay, and yeah, they just left our game, and then the last game they said 3 votes. Callinan, the whole room just erupted. And I still even remember coming home and catching up with the boys at Cooley's Hotel and having a few beers on the Tuesday. It was just unbelievable, and I'll take that memory to my grave.
Yeah, obviously a huge honour. I mean, to win that you think about the players that have won it, even guys like Sam Mitchell, Liston Trophy winners. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. Like, I look back now, and it's a great honour. You probably don't really appreciate it much at the time, but I don't think, not just me, it was just great for the footy club, to be honest. And Tasmanian people, it was just good for the club and good for Tassie footy, to be honest.
How many clubs did you train with? Did you talk to? Sort of gave you a little bit of a feel that they might pick you up over that period when you were playing here in Tasmania before you moved? Yeah, I spoke to heaps of clubs, mate, and in the end, there's no guarantee. Like, I was lucky enough to train at Collingwood. Obviously, that was my draft year, missed out. 04, I trained at Essendon. 06, North Melbourne. 07, Richmond. So I got the opportunity, but I was never the greatest runner, mate. I'm happy to say that I'm probably just more of a footballer. I'm not that athlete that can turn up the train and is going to finish top 5 in the running, but I'd like to think that my footy brain and my skill level was good enough to play at the level. So when it sort of starts, that doesn't happen. You sort of start losing that dream. But thankfully, I got the opportunity late in my career, and something that I'll never ever forget. Yeah, let's go down that path a bit, because what ultimately makes you move to South Australia and the mighty Central District Football Club that was so successful? Is it that you're still harbouring some hope of getting drafted, or is it just, I want to go and further myself and try something different? What was the sort of motivation behind the move?
No, it was completely just a change, to be totally honest, mate. I played a state game in 05 against South Australia, and I was lucky enough, I played on Central's captain, Heath Hopwood, and I did it right. I kicked 3 goals on him, and then the Central had sort of spoke to me after that game, and the 06 season, I was on 95 games. I knew playing life membership was 100 games, and I knew I was pretty close to being the first. So I decided that, I really wanted to do that. I love my mates and that, so I really wanted to be the first player to play 100 games for Tasmania, which was a pretty good effort. Like, it was bloody great playing with my mates, and to be the first, it was huge. So I decided to stay home, and then I always said to Centrals, though, if it does, that doesn't mean I'm not going to look at it the next year. So the following year, that's when I trained at North Melbourne, got myself super fit, and then sort of came home, and I was still undecided what I was going to do. And then Kreza got the job, and in the end, I decided, Lauren's mum and dad, who a lot of people would know Desi. He's from Shepparton. He moved down in '74, and his mum, his wife, they were sort of saying, man, maybe go and experience something different. It was an opportunity for Lauren, maybe with a job. So we decided to pack up and move over, and lucky enough I did. I was, the rest is history. I was lucky enough to play in 4 premierships. We were going for 5 in a row, and we got beat by 3 points. But not only that, I've got some great friends over there, and it's a lot like Tasmania, really. The lifestyle, it's just probably a bit warmer, and mate, the footy's unbelievable.
Yeah, you win 2 best and fairest, 4 premierships in a row. The Jack Odie medal is the best on ground in the 4th of those premierships as well, and ultimately you finally get an opportunity to be put on an AFL list. What do you remember about the circumstances around that and your reaction to finally having broken through? At what age did you get drafted?
I was 27, about to turn 28. It was really weird because obviously you know Hamish Ogilvy, who's a really good mate of mine. Like, he's batted for me forever. So it was funny. We'd won the 2010 grand final, which is the year that I won the Jack Odie, and he rang me on the Tuesday, which Tuesday in South Australia, when you win the premiership, is when you get to go and unveil the chimney, and you'd already sort of been on the gas for 2 or 3 days. So he rang me and said, look, mate, Neil Craig wants to catch up and have a coffee with you. And I thought he was absolutely taking like the PISS out of me. So I said, mate, you're taking the mickey out of me. And he said, no, he really wants to catch up. He said, look, I'm not going to talk to you now. Go away and enjoy it. He said, I'll ring you in a couple of days. So, and to his credit, he rang me back and said, look, the club want to catch up, have a coffee, sit down with Craigie and just nut out a few things. So I went and had a coffee with Craigie and said, look, mate, we're really keen to have a look at you, maybe come to training, see how you go. And I was really lucky because I got myself super fit in 2010 because probably 8 and 9, I'd sort of struggled body-wise. I probably wasn't as fit as I should have been. I still played some good footy, but I should have been absolutely dominating. I was still playing great footy, but I really should have been in the prime of my career and dominating. But I probably wasn't as fit as I should have been and had a couple of niggling injuries. So in 2010, I was lucky. I really rolled the dice and got myself super light and super fit. So it really helped me at the end of that. When I went and done the pre-season with Adelaide, I wasn't the greatest runner, but I wasn't running at the back of the group. I was just running middle, getting through all the running. My skill level, held up really well. And lucky enough, they still didn't really tell me they were taking me. And I just remember training on the rookie draft and then going down and sitting around the computers, and I was sitting there by myself, just sort of watching it. And then guys started coming around me. I'm thinking to myself, what happens if they don't read my name out? And then there's probably 25 blokes standing around, and then they obviously read my name out, and it was an unbelievable feeling. Obviously, I got Haggis to thank for that. Like David Nobe was another Tassie guy. Had a fair bit. He was doing list management, and obviously I got a lot to thank Craigie as well.
So where were you watching on the computer? And was it at the footy club?
It was at the footy club just after training. We just done main session, so I was just sort of sitting around thinking to myself, what happens? I'm gonna have to get my baggie if my name doesn't get read out. So lucky enough it did, and the rest is history.
So what happens in that moment when your name pops up? What's the reaction from you? Can you recall how you felt and what?
Just relief. I think it was more not just for me. It was just because in the end, like, you always think you can play at the level, but you don't until your name gets read out. But I was more happy for other people because they were telling me I should have been doing it for years. So in the end, it was just relief for me, but it was also relief for them. And I was just happy that Adelaide was lucky enough to give me that opportunity. And they're a great club, Adelaide. I enjoyed it. My 5 or 6 years there I still speak to a heap of the guys now, and even their support staff, all those sort of guys. It's great. You took your opportunity when you got it too. You played in your best year 23 games, 39 goals. The team makes a preliminary final. What do you remember of that year? Yeah, it was a great year. I remember Sando, because the year before I'd done my bicep tendon, so my first year drafted, I ended up tearing my bicep in the last NAB Cup game of the year, and I ended up missing 16 weeks. So, what are you thinking then? I mean, after all you'd been through, what do you? Well, I just thought that I wasn't meant to be, to be honest. And I still remember to this day, I played one game. I played half a game back at Sandford, then played a full game, and then we were going into a bye. And then Craigie said, "Look, if we don't." You've played a game and a half in the Sandford. He said, if we don't play you now, he said, we're probably never going to, because in the end you're going to have a bye, then there's another week you miss. So in the end he said, we're going to go with you this week. And I remember he calling me in at Amy Stadium into the centre of the ground. And he called me over. He said, I want to apologise. And I'm thinking, what do you want to, there's nothing to apologise about. I'm about to play my first game. He goes, mate, you should have been doing this 5 years ago. And it just meant, he didn't need to say that. And he, and that's the sort of guy that Craigie was. So I'll never forget that moment. And then, obviously we played Geelong, and then we ended up getting smacked. But then, so then I thought I played the last game of the year. That game, so that when Bix took over. So I played the last game, and we played West Coast over there, and they ended up smacking us by about 100 points. So I thought, I've played me 3 games, and that'll be it. But then Sando got the job, and they basically said, no, you're fine, just make sure you get yourself right, get yourself fit. So I didn't miss any of the pre-season, we got a new fitness guy, Nick Paulos, so he came on and we did a lot of Olympic lifting, which I'd never done in my life, but just got really strong through the legs and through the core and all that sort of thing. So we sort of trained, and I got a little bit heavier. I was playing at about 69 kilos because I was super light. So I got to around 73, 72, 73, and I was a lot stronger. My body just held up a lot more, so I ended up playing, I think, 25 games that year, and yeah, lucky enough to play in the prelim, which we did hit the front with not long to go. And I still remember because I got a ball, it must have been a minute to go, and I ended up kicking it to Dane, it just bounced at the bottom of his feet, and then he tried to break a tackle and he ended up getting caught holding the ball and then went down the other end. The siren went, so we weren't far away.
Gosh, mate, yeah, amazing memories. I remember Neil Craig doing a press conference and saying in it that the game had done this bloke a disservice. This guy should have played 200, 250 games sort of thing. So, yeah, that recognition at the end that you had deserved to be there. When you think back, you talk about not being the greatest runner. Has it ever were you the victim of time, that they were going for a more athletic player? They were drafting that type of player. You were 171 centimetres. Those types of things didn't help you. Even where you came from didn't help you.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, especially early in 2000, they started going, the guys that weren't necessarily footballers, they were going more the athlete and trying to teach them how to play, which we all know that doesn't work. Like, in the end, you can't teach someone, well, I don't believe you can't teach. You can tell someone where to run, but it doesn't mean the ball's going to go there. So it's, you got to be able to read the game. So they sort of started going away from that, and then, yeah, as it sort of slowly turned. Like, I wasn't a horrendous runner. I just wasn't an elite runner. So I didn't, I never stood out. So it just, going back to Dogger, he taught me how to train. Necessarily wasn't going to be the greatest runner, but just don't miss any of the sessions. Just push yourself as hard as you can. As long as I did that sort of stuff and got through all the training, did all the training, like, my footy talent looked after itself. So he just taught me how to do that, and I probably wasn't the greatest eater either in the early days. So
what was your diet like, Wingnut? Tell me the type.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great, mate. It wasn't great, but in the end, mate, we didn't have heaps of money growing up as kids either. So we just ate what we could afford, and that's not saying mum and dad starved us. It just, it just was how Dad was. He was the only one working. Mum, we had 4 kids, and mum stayed at home. So we just basically could eat what we could afford. We never missed out on a meal, but we probably didn't have the meals that we, the salads and all that sort of stuff. So it took me a little bit of time to work out, to change that, and that's where Dogger and that sort of came in and sort of turned that around. And then, Lance Sporting, who is no longer with us, he took me under his wing. I had a bit of problem with my groins, and he took me under his wing for a pre-season and got me on a mountain bike and trimmed me right down, taught me how to eat. And because Dogger was the real hard guy, he was the guy that would really ride you, and whereas Lance would be the guy that would really pick you up and be, like your mate, and just say, "No, it's all right, mate. Just jump on, do what he asks," and that's what we did.
Leaves a great legacy, doesn't he, Lance Sporting? That's for sure. Did you ever think to yourself, "Gosh, imagine what life might have been like had the Tasmanian team existed when I was just a young 17-year-old coming through the system"? Yeah,
absolutely, mate. I think about it every day, to be honest, because I wouldn't have had to go and train at 5 other clubs. You're in your own backyard, and let's be honest, you see the Bulldogs, they pick a lot of guys out of their VFL team. Like, you imagine guys that are playing down here, they see him every week. They invite him to training, and it's just easy to say, right, man, this kid's good enough to play. Let's just play him, and we haven't got that. So I look back now and think, geez, when I was 18, 19, I wish that was around when I was here, because you just never know. Like, more than likely, you probably would have got an opportunity like at that age.
Because the Tassie team would be more likely to take that punt on.
Oh, absolutely.
A Tassie kid, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But he's in your own backyard, so you don't have to go and relocate that kid from Melbourne to Tasmania. Like, he's in your own backyard, so there's going to be heaps more opportunity for those guys. It's just, yeah, it's funny because like you look back and think, geez, it could have been us, but we don't want to be selfish. We're more worried about the kids coming through now, so they're just going to get huge opportunity, and it means that they don't have to go and play in South Australia. If you go and have a look at the South Australian competition now, you probably find 20 Tasmanians running around it. Whereas if that's a Tassie side here, even they can play the VFL, the amount of kids that get picked out of their VFL, like the Bulldogs, there's going to be heaps of opportunity.
Yeah. What would it mean to see that Tassie jumper run out in the AFL for someone like you who's a past player essentially? You played over 100 VFL games for Tassie, you played in representative matches as well.
Oh, mate, it mean the world. Oh, mate, not necessarily me either, but like, mate, we've had some of the greatest footballers of all time, and like Hart, Bulldog, mate, Jack Rewalt. Like, Jack Rewalt's probably he's pushing top 5 as the greatest Tasmanians of all time. If you have a look at his record, Alistair Lynch, mate, even Ivor Warren Smith, all those guys. Like, the amount of people who wore this jumper has been unbelievable. You know, Andy Bennett, who coached me in the under 18 level, he's one of the most passionate Tasmanians I've ever met. Like, just guys for people like that. It's just there's so much history in the jumper. Mate, it'd just be unbelievable. Spine tingling even just to think about. Like, I just can't wait to walk through that gate and go and watch the first game, and hopefully they get it. You know, they'll obviously get it right. They'll set it up properly, and mate, when that runs out, it'll be the biggest roar of all time, I reckon.
That's for sure. When your time in South Australia comes to an end, you decide to come back to Tasmania, and you played with Clarence again and a bit of old scholars footy as well. What drew you back to Tasmania?
Oh, just family, mate, to be totally honest. I could have stayed in South Australia and gone and played country footy. We just wanted to come home with family. Obviously, we had Jack. I think he was about 11 at the time. We had Harry, who was probably 4 or 5, and Grace wasn't born yet, but she was due in January. So we'd been away for 10 years, so it was probably time to come home and let the family enjoy the kids. So, you know, I was lucky enough that I could still play a little bit of footy. I look back now and probably had too many farewells leaving Adelaide, and there's no way I was probably fit enough, you know, to play TSL footy. I should have been a lot fitter than I was. I still played reasonable footy, but in the end, as you get older, you probably need to get fitter and lighter. And so I really enjoyed. It was great footy, and I really enjoyed playing there. But I probably had more fun playing, you know, old scholars, where you could just train the 2 nights a week. Still did all the training. I probably actually got myself fitter because I was disappointed that I should have been fitter at Clarence. So yeah. I probably got myself super fit at OHA, and mate, they're a great club. I was lucky enough to go on and coach them as well, and still go back there and catch up with those guys. And it's, you know, a good competition, the old scholars, but you know, I still love the Roos and still go and watch them. And yeah,
coming home around 2019, 2020, you have a really serious health scare. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah, so I'd had a few issues leading in. I couldn't really work out what it was. So basically just had a couple of little episodes at work and had a heap of tests on my heart. Had a few scans on my brain, but they couldn't really find anything, to be totally honest. So basically, I started feeling all right. And then one night, or one morning, sorry, I went to bed on a Wednesday night, and then woke up on a Thursday morning and had a real bad tingling in my ear. And I thought, geez, that's weird. Look, we all get a bit of ringing in that, tingling in the ear. So I sort of rolled over to go back to sleep. I was far off getting up to go to work. And then, you know, probably 4 or 5 minutes went past and that ringing just wouldn't go away. So I went to get up, mate, and I just could not feel my whole right side. It was like it was numb. So I sort of basically went to get up and go to the toilet and sort of stumbled my way down and went to the toilet. And then Lauren and her mum were just about to go for a walk, and she sort of looked at me, and Lauren said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Oh, don't know, really." She said, "You had one of those turns," and I said, "I think so." And then, basically she said, "You're going to be sick," and I just spewed, and just had no concept really. I don't remember. Lauren reminded me that I went to grab a tissue and I just had no concept of how to grab it or where to grab it or anything like that. In a sense, when she knew something was wrong, so they basically rushed me up to the Cowrie and ended up having an MRI, and they found out that I had a stroke in the cerebellum, which is probably why I was stumbling down the hallway, because it affects your balance. So I went to the Royal, spent 5 days there, and then they basically worked out that I ended up having a hole in my heart. So obviously, you know, the clots got through, and pretty lucky, but I'm still here, so that's the main thing.
Oh mate, amazing. I mean, at mid-30s at the time that happened, and it's huge thing for the family to deal with, I suppose, at the time. And how's it affected you? You seem like you've bounced back superbly.
Yeah, I have, mate. I'm pretty lucky. I went to a seminar probably 12 months after I had the stroke, and mate, you walk in there and you see guys that can't, you know, they struggle to talk, they struggle to walk. They would have been looking at me thinking, why is this guy even here? But what a lot of people don't realise is it affects, like, part of the brain's obviously dead, so it's never going to come back. So your brain's really good at compensating and saying, righto, that part's dead, I've got to compensate for it now. So I get really tired. So you don't see that part of it, but so I've got to be really careful, because as you get tired, you know, and you get older, you get grumpy. So, and when you get kids, so I've got to be really careful not taking, you know, getting home from work after 8 hours and then being really tired. I've just started going back to the gym, which has been really important. I sort of got into a bit of a lull there because I'm used to, training flat out, never missing a training session in my life, I don't reckon. And then all of a sudden, after 2.5 years, I haven't done a thing. So I've just got back to the gym the last 6 weeks, and I've really enjoyed that. And I sort of probably got into bad habits because I was, what it's like when you sit around, you get tired anyway. So maybe I had a bit of that as well. So to get back to the gym and just a little bit of purpose sporting wise, because I'm lucky enough to play a bit of cricket with my brothers and that sort of thing. So I've been doing that the last couple of years, but I probably got the heaviest I've ever been in my life and just wasn't happy with it. So I started going back to the gym. But it is what it is, mate. We deal with it as a family, and kids were super. When it happened, they were pretty scared, but same with my wife. Lauren's been there since, day dot, and she's been super forever. So they just took it in our stride, and we're back to normal and living a great life.
Awesome to see you doing so well, mate. Couple of quick ones to finish. Wingnut, these I'll just fire at people to see where their brain takes them. Who do you think's the best Tasmanian footballer of all time?
It's hard to say because it's hard to go back in eras, but they obviously talk about Darryl Bulldog. Like, mate, if I've met Darryl Bulldog because he was a horse trainer, and I was into the horse game, and mate, he wasn't even that big, but he played centre half forward, and some of the stuff he obviously did, but the kids these days, like Jack Rewald, if you have a look at his record, mate, it's unbelievable. And I remember playing with Jack when he was a 17-year-old kid and kicking 5 in the VFL. The change he made from being a guy worrying about kicking, maybe kicking the 100 goals to changing his game to more like a Tommy Hawkins, where it was all about the team and, mate, and his record is just unbelievable. Like, so he'd be right up there. I used to love watching Richo play. So you could name, I'd have to probably say Bulldog because, obviously he's been unbelievable. And there's obviously Ian Stewart. Yeah. He won 3 Brownlow medals. So, mate, it's a good argument to have. And then there's Hutto, whose record's probably better than everyone. So, I don't know. To be totally honest, we've had that many good ones. And then there's Disco Roach. Yeah. Like, the list goes on. So I wouldn't like to single one out, but I like the Doc. I've spent a bit of time with the Doc in the horse game, so I'll go with him. No worries, mate. Best player you played with in Tasmania? Best player I played with in Tasmania? At VFL level, it's pretty hard. Benny Atkins, one of my faves, and he sort of played a bit of everywhere, a bit of halfback, on ball, wing. He was just a super player, mate. He's a terrific bloke, but he just played well in big games as well. Just turned up week in, week out. And a very, very close second who played AFL footy was Benny Beams, mate. He could kick a goal from anywhere. He's an absolute legend of a bloke. He led us really well as a captain, but he was just a match winner, mate. I remember games he was kicked 7, 8, 9 at VFL level, and I remember, growing up and watching him when I was a kid, going in, 96 to the Mariners. I was only a kid, watching him playing some of the stuff that he used to do. But yeah, we had some great players, mate. I'll probably get a couple of text messages in the next couple of hours. So. That's all part of it. Yeah. Who was your Tasmanian footy hero as a kid? Who did you look up to most? I'd probably say Richo, really, because obviously he was a young. I remember they used to call him Young Bull like back in the day, and I remember watching him, and he was just so athletic, and he wasn't the greatest kick, but the way he could mark and bound around, and mate, if you go back and have a look at his record, he kicked 800 goals, and he probably kicked 800 points. It's just unbelievable. So he's one that I absolutely idolise. Even Kreza, like I remember Sydney used to be on TV a fair bit, so he always used to watch the Tassie guys sort of growing up. So, and I used to love Nick Rewalt. I obviously played junior footy against Nick, especially he played at Sandy Bay, so he was my age. So I think he left pretty early, but I remember playing against him with the Sandy Bay colours on, with the real snowy white hair down at Sandy Bay, and so I used to follow all the Tassie guys. Favourite ground in Tasmania? Oh, North Hobart by a mile. I wish we never left there at the VFL, so we ended up going to Brewery. But mate, North Hobart's a home of footy. It's just like it's a bit like Etihad Stadium, where everyone's sort of sitting on top of you, and it was spine tingling, to be honest. So yeah, that's easily my favourite ground. You get one pick of the entire AFL competition at the moment. For the men's team, who would you pick to play for Tasmania if the team was running out soon? So someone who's currently in their prime in the competition. Yeah, I've been asked this question a lot. I've actually thought about it, because I remember listening to Luke Hodge once before, because a lot of people go the best player, whereas for me, now I don't know who this is, but for me, I reckon it's for someone that's going to set your culture up. So I'll use Callum Ward as an example. For me, is that he's someone that'll teach Jack Callinan how to train, how to live values, how to do that, which is what I think Tassie need. Now we can go out and get, say, Lance Franklin, that might be the best player, and this is nothing against Lance. He's probably unbelievable at it, but I just think that we need to get someone that's going to set standards and get the culture right and live by those values and teach all the kids to do that. Not necessarily go out and get the best player because he's going to kick 1,000 goals. Yeah, that's nice, but sometimes that doesn't help the culture of your footy club. So for me, hopefully they go out and pick the right person that's going to lead and set by example.
Yeah, that's a good point. Lastly, as a past Tasmanian player, how do you want the AFL players that wear that jumper to represent you?
Just have a crack, mate. It's about going out and just, mate, playing with heart, passion, and in the end, just give it everything you got, mate, because we've never been the most talented state. You know, we haven't had the opportunities a lot of the other states have had, but we've always done really well through just having a crack, and when the ball's there to win, just put your head over and win it, and whoever's in your way, just take them out. I know that's a bit hard these days because you can't hit anyone in the head or anything like that, so, but just have a fair dinkum crack, mate.
Ian Callinan. Few worked harder for their AFL opportunity, none deserved it more. What might have been had Tasmania's AFL licence been granted a couple of decades earlier. To listen to other episodes with outstanding Tasmanians, look for The Heart of It on all your usual podcast platforms or at tasmaniafc.com. I'm Alistair Nicholson. I hope you enjoyed the podcast.